The grandfather clock in the corner of the Blackwood Preparatory Academy library ticked like a slow, somber heartbeat, each swing of its pendulum measuring out another second of the suffocating, rain-swept night. The sound was a familiar comfort in the cavernous silence of the Gothic hall. From her perch at the main circulation desk, Eliza scanned the spine of a leather-bound book, her glasses perched on the end of her nose. To anyone watching, she was the perfect librarian, quiet, meticulous, and utterly unremarkable. She was a woman of habit, a creature of the stacks who seemed to belong to the dust and the ink of the past. A soft chirp, inaudible to anyone else, sounded in her right ear. Her eyes didn't flicker from the book's faded gold lettering. Handler, 5-0, they're on the move. Two of them, approaching the west wing. Eliza's expression remained placid, a mask of scholarly focus. Her left hand continued its gentle path over the book's cover, but her right hand, hidden below the polished desk, moved with a fluid speed that betrayed her calm appearance. Her fingers found the magnetic catch of a hidden panel. It slid open without a sound, revealing the cold, dark metal of a compact firearm nestled in custom-molded foam. She lifted it, the weight familiar, an extension of her own will. Her grip was that of a seasoned pro, the calm of a predator that knows its territory. She had spent a lifetime preparing for this specific moment, a lifetime of shadows, whispers, and blood. Eliza let them come. Blackwood was more than a school. It was a fortress of learning perched on a remote, windswept coastline. It was a place where the children of the elite were sent to be molded, far from the distractions of the modern world. Its stone walls had stood for over a century, weathering storms of both the literal and metaphorical kind. The library was its heart, a stunning cathedral of knowledge with vaulted ceilings, stained glass windows, and the intoxicating scent of aged paper and wood smoke. Eliza had been its keeper for 3 years. To the faculty, she was a quiet miracle of efficiency who had single-handedly digitized their ancient cataloging system. To the students, she was a ghost who materialized with the right book at the right time, before vanishing back into the stacks. They knew nothing of the woman who once navigated the shadow wars of geopolitical conflict, a woman whose past was buried in blacked-out files and ghost operations. She had come to Blackwood seeking silence, a penance for a past steeped in violence. This library was her monastery, her self-imposed exile. Her gaze drifted from the book to a boy sitting alone by the far window. Leo, a slight, dark-haired boy of 17 with eyes that held a quiet intensity. He wasn't like the other students, with their boisterous confidence and casual wealth. He was an observer, a listener, a boy who preferred the company of long-dead authors to his living peers. He was a scholarship student, a brilliant anomaly in this world of inherited privilege, and he spent most of his free hours here, lost in the library's forgotten corner. He was currently poring over a set of the school's architectural blueprints from the early 1900s, his brow furrowed in concentration. Another chirp from her earpiece. Handler, 5-0, visual confirmation, 2 hostels, east entrance of the library. They're not on my roster. They're sterile. Eliza's blood ran cold. Sterile meant they were ghosts, deniable assets. Mercenaries of the highest caliber. This wasn't a simple corporate rivalry. This was something else. Her handler's voice was tight with a tension she rarely heard. Handler, 5-0. A third has just cleared security at the main gate. He's using Abernathy's personal clearance code. And Eliza. I have a face. It's Kyle. The name hit her like a physical blow. KL, the man who had trained her. Her partner. The closest thing she'd ever had to a brother in arms. The man who sold their last operation down the river for a paycheck, leaving her the sole survivor of a mission gone disastrously wrong. The mission that ended her career and sent her here. The memories flooded back. Shadow operations in the jungles of Vietnam. Missions where allegiances blurred and ghosts of her fallen comrades rose with silent accusations. He wasn't supposed to exist anymore, and he was here. In her sanctuary, she looked at the students scattered around the library, oblivious. She looked at Leo, tracing the lines of the old building with his finger. Kyle wasn't here for her. If he were, he'd have come alone, and he wouldn't have bothered with stealth. This was a snatch and grab. They had a target inside the school. Her real mission, the reason she was planted in this library, had just gone live. Protect the innocent, find the asset, at any cost. The main library doors swung open, admitting two men in expensive, tailored suits. Their smiles were polished. Their confidence screamed old money. One was talking on his phone, acting like a busy parent. The other scanned the room, his eyes lingering a fraction too long on the cameras, the exits, the students. It was a professional assessment, as natural to him as breathing. Eliza recognized the look. She'd worn it 1,000 times. She watched as Headmaster Abernathy, whose family had funded Blackwood for generations, greeted them with a practiced smile. "Abernathy, gentlemen, welcome to Blackwood. I trust your journey was pleasant. We're so glad you could join our list of prospective parents." The taller of the two men smiled, a cold, predatory gleam in his eyes. "Mercenary One, the pleasure is all ours, Headmaster. We're very much looking forward to the tour." Eliza's hand tightened on the weapon beneath her desk. The hunt had begun, and the wolves were already inside. A school tour was the perfect cover. It gave them access, mobility, and a reason to be peering into every corner of the campus. Eliza stayed at her post, a spider in the center of her web. While she appeared to be processing late returns, she was actually slicing through the school's digital infrastructure. With a few keystrokes, she bypassed Abernathy's firewalls and accessed the encrypted visitor logs, cross-referencing their fake identities with a private database. The results came back empty. Ghost profiles. But their digital trail gave her something else. A target. They had been searching the student database, but not randomly. Their search was filtered: scholarship recipients, advanced placement in biochemistry, and a specific genetic marker logged in the confidential medical files. Only one name matched all three criteria: Leo Vance. Her eyes flickered back to the boy, still lost in his blueprints. Why him? The file was thin. Parents deceased in a lab explosion 5 years ago. Both were brilliant geneticists for a boutique research firm, a firm quietly acquired by the Ethelred Pharmaceutical Corporation 2 weeks after their deaths. Ethelred, a corporate behemoth known for its aggressive tactics, and a rumored Black Ops division that handled corporate espionage with military precision. The pieces clicked into place, forming a picture of a conspiracy so vast it was chilling. Cale was Ethelred's cleaner, and Leo wasn't just a student. He was an asset, a living, breathing piece of intellectual property. Something in his blood was the key. A soft chime announced a new email in Abernathy's private inbox. Eliza, already inside his account, opened it. It was a single line of text from an anonymous, encrypted address. "Is the package secure?" Abernathy's reply was almost instant. "He is in the library. Unaware. Proceed as planned." The breath caught in Eliza's throat. The betrayal was absolute. Abernathy wasn't just compromised, he was an active participant. The shepherd was leading the wolves to the lamb. She had no time for fury. A new alert pinged on her motion sensor feed. One of the mercenaries had broken off from the tour and was heading back towards the library, using the service corridors. She had to move now. Eliza stood up, her movements calm and deliberate, and walked over to Leo's carrel. "Eliza Leo, the West Wing archives have that original manuscript on medieval siege tactics you were asking about. The one with the detailed schematics of castle fortifications. I think you'd find it illuminating." She tapped the blueprints he was studying. Her voice was a low murmur, but her eyes conveyed an urgent, silent command. Leo, used to her odd recommendations, looked up, confused by the intensity in her gaze. "Leo, oh, Mrs. Miller, Eliza, it's a limited access item. If you want to see it, it has to be now." Her tone left no room for argument. Puzzled, Leo gathered his things. As he stood, Eliza discreetly pressed a small, smooth disc into his palm. A location tracker. Eliza, followed the green-lit corridor. Second door on the left. Don't talk to anyone. Don't stop. Just go. She watched him disappear into the labyrinthine stacks, then turned her attention to the service corridor entrance, a door hidden behind a row of shelves. She had less than a minute. She moved with silent grace, positioning a heavy book cart laden with encyclopedias near the door. From her desk, she grabbed a canister of archival aerosol spray, a highly flammable solvent. She quickly rigged it to the cart's handle, aiming the nozzle at the door. The service door opened a crack. A hand in a black tactical glove snaked through. Eliza held her breath. The door swung inward, and the mercenary stepped through, his sidearm drawn and fitted with a suppressor. He never saw her. Eliza kicked the book cart. It rolled forward, hit a pre-placed book, and tipped. The heavy encyclopedias crashed down in a thunderous avalanche. The mercenary flinched, startled by the noise. It was the only opening she needed. In that split second, she was on him. She brought a thick, hardbound copy of War and Peace down on his wrist with brutal precision. The sickening crunch of bone was drowned out by the cascade of falling books. His firearm clattered to the floor. Before he could cry out, she drove the pointed steel of a vintage letter opener into the soft tissue beneath his jaw. His eyes went wide with shock, then vacant. He crumpled to the ground, his life bleeding out onto the priceless Persian rug. She felt nothing, just the cold efficiency of a job that needed doing. She dragged the body behind the circulation desk, the entire sequence taking less than 10 seconds. She picked up his weapon, checked the load, and tucked it into the small of her back. She took his earpiece and slipped it into her ear. Kyle, 5-0. Status, Titus? What was that noise? Eliza took a calming breath, mimicking the breathing of a man who'd just been in a struggle. She pressed the transmit button. Eliza package is on the move. Delayed by a nosy student, the librarian is suspicious. I think she made me. The silence on the other end was deafening. Cale was a master strategist. An unexpected variable would make him cautious. KL 5-0, the librarian? The woman with the glasses? Negative. She's a nobody. A file pusher. Ignore her. Regroup at the West Wing rendezvous. We're initiating lockdown. No one gets in or out. Find the boy. Eliza allowed herself a grim smile. He underestimated her, just like he did all those years ago. It was the last mistake he'd ever make. The school's emergency alarms began to blare. A shrill cry signaling the campus was now a cage. A lockdown initiated by Abernathy, trapping the students, trapping Leo, and trapping them all inside with her. She was no longer just a librarian. She was the ghost of Blackwood, and this was her haunting ground. The lockdown was brutal. Steel shutters slammed down over windows and doors, turning the campus into a fortress. The alarm was replaced by Abernathy's calm voice over the PA system, speaking of a sudden, severe weather event. It was a slick, believable lie. The students, conditioned to drills, complied, huddling in their dorms, unaware they were now inmates in a hunting ground. Eliza and Leo were alone in the vast, silent library. Emergency lights cast long, distorted shadows that danced like specters among the shelves. Leo stood frozen in the West Wing archives, the tracker clutched in his hand, his face pale with terror. Leo, what's happening? What was that noise? Who are those men? Eliza moved toward him, her presence a bubble of calm in his fear. She placed a steady hand on his shoulder. Eliza, those men are here for you, Leo. And I'm here to make sure they don't get you. Her voice was low, devoid of panic. It was the voice of a surgeon explaining a procedure. A voice that inspired a strange confidence. It was a skill honed in the field, the ability to project absolute control, even as her own heart hammered against her ribs. Leo for me? Why? I'm nobody. Eliza, you're not nobody, Leo. Your parents were special people. They left you a legacy, something these men and the corporation they work for, Ethelred Pharma, want very badly. It's inside you, in your blood. A formula. A key. I don't know the specifics, but I know it's valuable enough to send a team like this. She watched his face as the impossible truth settled in. The confusion. The denial. And then the dawning horror. The lab explosion. It wasn't an accident. Eliza didn't have time for grief counseling. Through the captured earpiece, she heard Kyle reorganizing his team. They were sweeping the school quadrant by quadrant, using the school's own security network, fed to them by Abernathy. KL, 5-0. He's not in the dorms. Not in the science labs. Abernathy confirms he was last seen in the library. He's with the librarian, The package has a guardian angel. Change of plans. The librarian is now a primary target. Hostile. Eliminate on sight. So much for being a nobody. Eliza's mind raced. The library was her domain. A death trap, if you knew how to set it. Eliza Leo, your research. The blueprints. You've been studying them for weeks. Tell me you found something. A secret. A forgotten passage. Anything, Leo. Jolted from his shock, nodded slowly. His obsession with the school's history was no longer a hobby. It was their only advantage. Leo, the original structure. Before the 1920s renovation, there were service tunnels for the staff. Most were sealed off, but the plans show one that connects the library's sub-basement to the old observatory on the cliffs outside the school's main wall. A private entrance for the original benefactor. A way out. A chance. Eliza, show me. They descended into the musty sub-basement. Using the blueprints and a flashlight, Leo led her to a brick wall. By cross-referencing the schematics with an old ventilation shaft, he found the seam. While Leo worked to unseal the hidden door, Eliza prepared for the inevitable confrontation. This was personal now. She remembered her partner dying in her arms on the mission Kyle betrayed. She would not fail again. She would not lose someone else under her protection. She worked with what she had, a master of improvisation. She siphoned alcohol from preservation jars, creating Molotov cocktails in antique glass bottles. She unspooled reels of microfilm, its thin celluloid perfect for tripwire. She broke apart a heavy oak chair, sharpening one leg into a deadly stake. The library, a place of contemplation, was becoming an armory. A heavy thud echoed from the floor above. They were here. Leo finally let out a small gasp. A section of the brick wall receded with a low groan, revealing a dark, narrow opening. The air smelled of damp earth and sea salt. Eliza, go. The tunnel will be unstable. Move carefully, but don't stop. I'll be right behind you. Leo, what are you going to do? Eliza looked at the makeshift weapons she had laid out, her face grim in the gloom. Eliza, I'm going to remind Mr. Kale why he should have stayed dead. She gave Leo a final push into the darkness. I will find you, she whispered, a promise to him and to herself. Then she turned back to face the approaching footsteps, lighting the rag on one of her alcohol bombs. 2 mercenaries descended the stairs, red laser sights cutting through the darkness. Mercenary 2 spread out. Find the tunnel entrance. Kyle wants them alive if possible. Eliza waited in the shadows. She let them get halfway across the room. Then she threw the bottle. It shattered against the far wall, erupting in a brilliant ball of fire. The men cried out, momentarily blinded. In that instant, Eliza moved. She vaulted over a stack of old desks and slammed the sharpened chair leg into the back of one mercenary's knee, dropping him with a scream. She used his falling body as a shield as the second mercenary opened fire, the suppressed shots punching through his comrade. Eliza, now armed with the dead man's rifle, returned fire with a controlled double-tap burst. The second man fell without a sound. The wounded mercenary scrabbled for his sidearm. Eliza stepped on his hand, crushing it. She leaned in close, her voice a venomous whisper. Eliza, where's Kale? The man just spat blood in her face. Eliza, wrong answer. A single shot echoed in the enclosed space. She grabbed their ammunition and a flashbang grenade. As she turned to follow Leo, she heard Abernathy's panicked voice in the earpiece. Abernathy 5-0, Kale. They're in the tunnels. She's killed 2 more of your men. This wasn't the plan. Kyle VO. There is no plan anymore, Headmaster. There is only the objective and an obstacle. Seal the tunnel entrance now. Eliza's blood ran cold. She scrambled into the tunnel, pulling the stone door shut just as she heard the grinding of heavy metal from the other side. A thick steel plate slid into place, locking her in. Trapping them, the hunt wasn't over. It had just moved underground. The tunnel was a claustrophobic nightmare of damp stone and darkness. Eliza's flashlight cut a small circle through the oppressive black. Leo was ahead, his breathing coming in ragged gasps. Kale, 5-0. She's in the tunnels with the boy. Abernathy has sealed the library entrance. Check the schematics. Find another way in. Find the observatory exit. Cut them off. Kale's voice was cold, But Eliza could detect the fury underneath. She had disrupted his perfect operation. She had made him bleed. This was personal for him now, too. They pressed on. Finally, they saw a faint glimmer of moonlight ahead. The exit opened into the base of the old observatory, a derelict stone tower clinging to the cliffs over the churning black ocean. They emerged into the circular ground floor, gulping the fresh, salty air. But their relief was short-lived. Mercenary 350. We're in position at the observatory. All exits are covered. They're boxed in. Eliza cursed under her breath. Cale had anticipated them. They had run from one cage straight into another. Leo looked at her, his eyes wide with despair. It's a dead end. Eliza's gaze swept the interior of the ruin. A rusted spiral staircase led up into the darkness. Her eyes rested on the tower's domed roof. High above the chaos, a sniper's nest. Eliza, not yet. Go all the way to the top. Don't stop. She pushed him toward the staircase and turned to face the main entrance. She had one flashbang and 2 magazines left. She wasn't just going to defend. She was going to attack. The main door burst open. 2 figures in black tactical gear stormed in. She let them take 2 steps before she threw the flashbang. The grenade detonated with a blinding white light and a deafening crack. The mercenaries staggered back, disoriented. Eliza opened fire. Each shot was deliberate. 1, 2, 3 rounds. 1 target down. The second man recovered faster, diving for cover behind a stone pillar, his rifle spitting fire. Chunks of stone exploded around Eliza. She rolled into a new position. Above the din of the firefight, she heard the thrum of an approaching helicopter. Kyle's exit. She didn't have much time. She laid down a line of suppressing fire, forcing the remaining mercenary to keep his head down, and then she bolted for the spiral staircase, taking the steps 2 at a time. She found Leo on the top floor, cowering behind the massive rusted gears of the dome's rotation mechanism. The helicopter now hovered just outside, its searchlight cutting through the rain. A rope ladder snaked down from its open door. And standing there, leaning out, was Kyle. He saw her at the same moment she saw him. He raised his rifle, but didn't shoot. He gestured for the man beside him, his last man to rappel into the dome. This was it. The mercenary landed silently, his weapon raised, but Eliza was gone. She had climbed onto the gantry surrounding the massive, disused telescope. Eliza, it's over, KL. Call him off. Kyle's voice, amplified by the rotors, boomed through the open dome. Kyle, it was over for you years ago, Eliza. In that jungle, I let you live. You should have stayed a ghost. Eliza, you left our team to die. For money, Kyle for a future, something you never understood. Now give me the boy. He's my retirement. As he spoke, Eliza was moving, circling the gantry in the dark. She knew the mercenary below was tracking her by sound. She kicked a loose piece of metal, sending it clattering to the floor on the opposite side. The mercenary spun and fired into the empty space. She dropped from the gantry, landing directly behind him. Before he could turn, she disarmed him in a swift, brutal series of strikes. The fight devolved into a desperate, hand-to-hand struggle. He was bigger, but she was faster, using his own momentum against him. The fight ended with Eliza locking him in a chokehold. As he struggled, his flailing hand knocked against the telescope's main clutch lever with a deafening groan of protesting metal. The massive telescope, locked in place for decades, began to swing down. Eliza saw Kyle's eyes widen. She saw Leo scramble out of the way. She held on to the mercenary, using his body as an anchor as the telescope's massive counterweight swung past them like a wrecking ball. She released him at the last second, pushing him directly into the path of the descending machinery. The impact was devastating. Now it was just her and Kyle. He shouted into his headset, and the helicopter moved to give him a clear shot. Eliza scooped up the fallen rifle and took aim. Her hands were slick with rain and blood. She saw Kyle in her sights, his face a mask of rage. It was just like the old days. Her as the shooter, him as the spotter. Only this time, he was the target. She squeezed the trigger. The shot was perfect. Across the chasm of wind and rain, she saw Kyle thrown back into the helicopter. The helicopter, spooked, veered sharply away, disappearing into the storm. Silence fell, broken only by the howling wind and the distant wail of sirens. Weeks passed. The official story from Ethelred Pharma and Blackwood was a carefully constructed fiction. A rogue security consultant, a tragic training accident, and a substantial donation to the school to ensure such a security lapse never happened again. The truth was buried. Abernathy took a sudden, quiet retirement for health reasons. The school slowly returned to normal. Students whispered theories about the night of the storm, but the stories soon faded into campus legend. In the library, a new librarian, a kindly older woman, now sat at the main desk. From a small cafe across the street, a woman with nondescript brown hair watched the students leave for the day. She saw Leo among them, no longer the quiet boy who hid in the stacks. He was laughing with friends, confident and free. He was safe. The woman paid for her coffee and stood. A text message vibrated on a burner phone in her pocket. It was from her handler. A single word, ready? Eliza, now just another face in the crowd, walked away from the cafe and melted back into the shadows. Her war was over, but for a ghost, there was always another haunting just around the corner. The world is full of secrets, and she is their keeper. The story continued to unfold as Eliza walked deeper into the city streets. She thought about Leo and the life he was leading, a life she had bought for him with the currency of violence. She knew the Ethelred Corporation would not simply disappear. Their tentacles reached into every level of global power, and they would eventually regroup. Their resources vast and their memory long, but that was for tomorrow. Today, there was only the street, the cold evening air, and the quiet satisfaction of a debt settled. She moved with an ease that felt like breathing, her surroundings becoming a blur of motion as she navigated the crowded thoroughfares. A ghost passing through a world of living beings, the handler's text remained in her thoughts. A summons to another place, another mission, another ghost to be exorcised. She stopped briefly before a shop window, catching her reflection. A woman who had long ago traded her identity for the safety of others. She smoothed her hair, adjusted her coat, and turned the corner, vanishing into the urban landscape, her footsteps silent, her path untraceable. Behind her, the city lights flickered, a sprawling network of electricity and life that she would soon protect again from the shadows. Forever. The cycle of the Guardian never ends. It simply changes its form, moving from one library to another, one crisis to the next, a silent sentry on the wall of civilization. She smiled to herself, a brief, fleeting expression that would never reach her eyes, for eyes like hers had seen too much. And as the night deepened, the librarian was no longer a person, but a promise that when the wolves came, someone would be waiting in the stacks. The final chapter of Blackwood was behind her, but the book of her life was still wide open, each page a testament to the sacrifice required for peace.